Like a dynamic supportive that makes you believe in yourself, a dynamic assertive inspires you in a way that shakes your very foundation. One-on-one, they could change the world if they could live 1,000,000 years. But they can't. And they generally get killed. It's true. Absolutely true. Look at those who were idealists who tried to change the world throughout history. Do you think it's an accident that all the great martyrs all were social activists, political activists, religious activists, wanting to change the status quo, wanting to make it better, and were right when we look about what they were wanting to do? They were absolutely right. People acknowledged it in their day, but they had no mass uprising to change things because they did not control the paradigm. Because once you try to change a paradigm, you are pushed out of the paradigm. You could have been one of the leaders of the paradigm. You could have been someone that everyone believed in, but the moment you threaten it, you are excluded. You are out of there. So you could now visualize, you're out, you have no power base, but people know you, they recognize you, they've read your work. That's because adaptive supportives and adaptive assertives generally are going to go with the status quo. Why do you think that people don't change in their religious beliefs and political beliefs even when they're outdated, archaic, counterproductive, or inhumane? The same old, more of the same. I mean, just look at the phenomena, right? Doesn't matter how much corruption you have in Washington, we keep the same system in place. We don't have a representative democracy. We have democracy of the wealthy. Unless I miss something, unless the average truck driver, cab driver, model, could you run for president and win? No. Could anyone in this room? No. Idealistically, we could say, yes, anybody can be president. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll sell you my right to be president for $5. Only a dynamic aggressive can become president. And to do so, they have to know how to use all the other energies, and they do. Once they establish certainty with no options, because once you're certain, you stop seeking options. That's the one thing all dynamic aggressives do for us. They give us certainty. They implant certainty in our belief systems. That's the first thing they do. I will stop communism. I will stop inflation. I will balance the budget. I will stop wrong subsidies. I will stop the Pentagon from putting exorbitant prices on things. I will close down unnecessary bases. And I will end the nuclear proliferation. Certainty. Then we say, yes, that's who I want. They get into office, nothing changes. Nothing changes. Does anyone know? We have no Cold War. We have no one to fight. And yet our defense spending has gone up, not down. We close bases and we take the money from a closed base and put it in someplace else. We're still producing nuclear weapons. We spend $11 billion a year maintaining nuclear arsenals. Billion per year. That's more than it would take to feed vitamins, healthy phytochemicals to every American citizen every day. We could change America's health in 1 year just from what we spend wasted, totally wasted, in the military-industrial complex. But the dynamic aggressives who run the military-industrial complex, the pharmaceutical complex, the medical complex, those people are all interconnected. Wise dynamics always associate together. They form bonds. Now you've got interlocking bonds. Now multinationals support each other. Interlocking directorates. Well then, where is it an opportunity for you or I to do anything? We have to do it outside of the paradigm. But if you get outside the paradigm, you're considered pseudoscientific. You're considered unscientific. You're considered a person without any support base. And they know it. You can't get on any of the major media. They own it. They control it. You'll get on the Village Voice or BAI. They know that's not a threat. They could care less. You're not changing anything. And it's true enough. After all the work on health and nutrition, we still only have 4% of the American population shopping in health food stores. 1.5% are true vegetarians. 1.5%. Now, like Martin Luther King, who told us all about peace, and the Pope, who told us about peace, and Mother Teresa about peace and love, we have not gained the message because we've not actualized it, because the paradigm leaders don't change the message in themselves. They don't actualize. If we had a paradigm leaders saying, this is what we're going to do, then everybody below it would do it. All power in America comes down, not up. And that's why dynamic assertives, be careful. If you're not smart, you end up a martyr. You end up dead or ridiculed, and you'll have no power base, and then you feel frustrated and angry. Better that you go into business for yourself, create an innovative business, because one thing that no other energy has, no one can do what a dynamic assertive can do. Dynamic assertives can take you where no one else has been before with ideas. They are the big dreamers. They can see things that no one else can see. They're visionaries. They're the visionaries. No other life energy is, only the dynamic assertive. Then if they are focused, disciplined, skilled, patient, and create your own business, then suddenly you have something no one else has. More new and innovative things come from dynamic assertives than any other group. But you have to have the skill. You can't be taking your energy, which tends to happen with dynamic assertives. They can do so many things and they have so many interests that they spread themselves out so nothing gets done right. And then they don't surround themselves with the right people, so then things start to fall through the cracks. So surround yourself with the right energies on their upside. And don't be as trusting, because you're going to be taken advantage of by people who you think is sharing your dream and are not. They don't understand what you're saying, but they're agreeing with you. Or you can be a minister. Or you can be a social activist like a Ralph Nader. But look at Ralph Nader. How many social activists do we have? A handful. How many can you name? We have a nation of over 250 million Americans. How many social activists can you name? I'll bet no one in this room can name 10. Not 10. Hard to name 2, right? What does that tell us? It tells us that the dynamic assertives do not have a place to share information, to share their unique energy. They're excluded because they're such a threat. The only reason that the Russian Revolution occurred this last time was because Sakharov and other dynamic assertives being out of prison and rallied support and took the world forward. And with it, the whole industry came down, the whole empire came down. Dynamic aggressives know that. Dynamic aggressives fear dynamic assertives. They fear them. That's why they try to co-opt them or destroy them or placate them. But you see some of the biggest battles in history when a dynamic assertive and a dynamic aggressive butt head to head. The difference is dynamic assertives are generally educated, dynamic aggressives are not. A dynamic aggressive one-on-one would never, never beat a dynamic assertive. But dynamic aggressives don't play fair. The kind of person that goes out to fight you one-on-one, and then suddenly you got 50 other adaptive aggressives there to stick in the back at the same time. Remember Julius Caesar? Those were all adaptive aggressives. That's how dynamic aggressive fights. They'll never fight one-on-one. Now let's go through some of the other energies here, or some of the other careers. Now I have included over 100 careers here, and this should cover most of you. Some I've already mentioned, like accountant specialist. And let's just see, yell out if you think you would know the type of life energy, or accountant. Adaptive assertive. Actor. Creative assertive. And by the way, for creative assertives, I didn't mention their career yet. Creative assertives, there's 2 things you should be doing. First, always best, if you have been conditioned to be an adaptive assertive, which many are, use that patience and focus to work within certain corporate constructs so that your creativity can help and enhance that corporate, like a textile designer, where you have a regular income and you're being acknowledged for your work. But be very careful, because if you have not been trained to be that patient, you're going to feel that you're compromising idealistically your gift, and you're going to be frustrated, and then you're going to get up sick. Creative assertives end up with all kinds of ulcers, gastrointestinal disturbances, migraine headaches, candida, because they internalize the angst of not working for themselves. It is better always for creative assertives to work for themselves and then hire themselves out on what they specialize to an industry or a company or an individual per project. Now, if you can really be patient, and if you work with an adaptive aggressive to market yourself, and that's who help markets. That's, by the way, that's a good combination. Creative assertive and adaptive aggressive, both on their upside. One has the skill and talent, the other has the capacity to open doors and get them work and to do some marketing. So if you created, let's say you created a new line of T-shirts. The creative assertive creates a T-shirt, the adaptive aggressive markets them. That's a good partnering. A creative assertive feels very uncomfortable asking for money and selling things. They're very self-effacing. And because creative assertives need so much time alone, they need that's the inner perspective, because all their work is inside, not outside. Only what's outside is a reflection of what they're feeling inside. So in that respect, work at something that you can specialize in. The trouble with many artists is that they do something that they don't know how to market, and they try to market it on their own, they get frustrated. Join in a partnership. Administrative support specialist, adaptive aggressive, or sometimes adaptive supportive. Adult education teacher, dynamic supportive. Advertising sales agent, adaptive aggressive. Aerospace engineer, adaptive assertive. Agricultural food scientist, agronomist. Agronomist is a person who specializes in plants. That takes patience, scholarship, and a lot of time spent alone. It takes details. It takes mastery. Adaptive assertive specializes in mastery. They're scholars frequently. They read and read and read and read. At nighttime, they love to be alone and read, or work on their computer now. And by the way, that's why we have so many people interested in computers. But now the difference is an adaptive assertive will know everything about a computer. They'll know how to fix them, how to get into websites, how to do all kinds of stuff that no other energy will know how to do. Dynamic aggressives couldn't even turn on a computer, let alone, but they'll hire someone to do it. Air traffic controller? Not adaptive aggressive. You'd have a lot of plane crashes if you had adaptive aggressive. I'm sick of this. I need a new blouse. Let them land themselves. I'm going out shopping. You mean they crashed? Well, it wasn't my fault. I have adaptive aggressive tension syndrome. Inner yuppie rage. I ought to be able to get off on a lenient count on that. Aircraft mechanic.
What is an aircraft control?
Adaptive assertive. Air traffic controller is the same. Aircraft mechanic is adaptive supportive. Aircraft pilot. Adaptive assertive. Ambulance driver. Adaptive supportive. Animal caretaker. Yeah. By the way, an awful lot of people love to be around animals, and if they could do anything. Even though an animal caretaker, I know lawyers who become animal caretakers. I know people who've given up careers to get out. In my later lecture this evening, I'm going to talk about some of the things we do to change careers, not based upon life energy. But being around animals brings us back to something innocent and honest and joyful and loving and nurturing. And a lot of people feel that all the success they've had, they've lacked that. And they want that rebonding. And that's why they'd love to be a forest ranger up in the Rockies, or work at a zoo. Did you ever go to a zoo and think, boy, that'd be neat to kind of be hanging out with the animals? Did that ever happen to you? Animal health technician. Adaptive supportive. Animal scientist. Adaptive assertive. Anthropologist. This is tricky. Dynamic assertive. Because anthropologists are also looking at the whole structure, context of a civilization, trying to understand what allowed it to exist or decline. They understand political systems. They have to, because it's no one reason that causes a culture to be defined. They have to be there to define a culture. For that, you have to have the big vision of life. You can't go in there and just be interested in minute little bones. You have to understand everything about a group of people. Margaret Mead is a good example. Charismatic, deterministic, an activist, a fighter for protecting indigenous species. and the knowledge of how they evolved and why we should better respect them. Apparel, adaptive aggressive. If it deals with fashion, cars, boats, airplanes, it's adaptive aggressive. They're always the ones who are in the best styles. They dress the nicest. If there were 5 women here tonight, for example, and one was an adaptive supportive, the likelihood is she would look like the woman in Working Woman, the movie. She looked like she comes from Staten Island with, the kind of the high frizz. If she was a creative assertive, she'd have weaves and bows and strange hair all over the place. Not quite sure what it represents, but it'd be kind of a chaotic but an important statement. They make statements with their body and their clothes. They'll paint their nails. They'll paint their head. They're not afraid to use their whole persona. If it was a adaptive, assertive woman, she'd have a close cropped hair, conservatively dressed, and it would almost never change, except as she aged, it'd get more purple. If it was an adaptive, aggressive, she'd have beautiful hair, beautiful clothes, everything perfectly matched. And if she was a dynamic supportive, she'd look kind of frumpy. Whatever she would have on, it wouldn't match, but it'd be kind of comfortable. They're into comfort. Downscale comfort, nothing upscale. Dynamic aggressive woman who would be here should be dressed like a power outfit. Business suit, something that says, I'm in power here. Dynamic assertive would be comfortable but casual. They don't like formal. Now, archivist, huh? Adaptive assertive. Astronomer, yes, dynamic assertive. Athletic trainer, dynamic supportive. And I'll go down to some of the others, like a baker. What would a baker be? Adaptive supportive. Bank teller, same. Barber, same. Bartender, same. Bicycle repair person, same. Billing clerk, the same. All adaptive supportives. A biochemist, adaptive assertive. A brick mason, adaptive supportive. Broadcast technician, adaptive supportive. Brokerage clerk, adaptive supportive. Bus driver, adaptive supportive. Butcher, adaptive supportive. Carpenter, adaptive supportive. Carpet installer, adaptive supportive. Car wash attendant, adaptive supportive. Cashier, the same. Towel installer, same. Chef could be a creative assertive, or chef could also be a dynamic supportive, either one. Chemical engineer, adaptive assertive. Technician, the same. Chemist, the same. Child care worker generally is a dynamic supportive. Chiropractor, dynamic supportive. Choreography, creative assertive. Civil engineer, adaptive assertive. Clergy, generally dynamic supportive or dynamic assertive, like Jesse Jackson is a dynamic assertive. Reverend Falwell is dynamic assertive. But others who are not looking to change the world are more interested in just helping their parishioners. They're dynamic supportives. Choreographer is creative assertive. A coach is a dynamic supportive. University administrator is generally an adaptive aggressive. Composer, creative assertive. Computer engineer, adaptive assertive.
That's creativity.
Computer, no, it's technical. Well, but remember, you can use creativity, which means that you will adapt to bring in, because people have to adapt to any job to look at the other energies, all of which we have 20% of our total energy, which is supportive energy, so that what they're trying to do, they can do better by learning other skills to bring into that primary skill. Okay? A consultant, dynamic supportive generally, or an adaptive aggressive. Correction officer, we have 2 of them here. Dynamic supportive. Utilities, adaptive assertive, dancer, creative assertive, dental assistant, dental hygienist, generally those are adaptive supportives. Technician, adaptive supportive. Dentist is generally dynamic supportive. Designer is a creative assertive. Dietitian, nutritionist is generally a dynamic supportive. Or it can be a dietitian is generally an adaptive. Most dietitians are adaptive supportives. Most nutritionists are dynamic supportive. Economists, adaptive assertive. Editors, we have an editor here. Generally a creative assertive, yes. Farmer, dynamic supportive. Firefighter, police officer, dynamic supportive. Hairdresser, same. No, generally they're not creative assertives. They could be, but generally not. Insurance salespersons, adaptive aggressive. Interior designer is generally a creative assertive. A jeweler, a silversmith, creative assertive. A judge, yeah. A psychologist, dynamic supportive. Radio and TV announcer, adaptive aggressive. A sociologist, dynamic supportive. Truck driver and a typist. Yeah. Now that gives you some of the categories. Now let me go through some of the ways that we can make a change, a transition from what we are into what we want to be. First, I gave you this as a background just so you understand where you might feel best. But you've got two things to consider. What have you been conditioned to be? Which energy were you conditioned? If you're conditioned to be a different energy, then you're going to feel very uncomfortable changing even though you're not fulfilled with what you're doing. So you have to go through a whole program of disengagement, what I call constructive disengagement. Meaning, set yourself a 3-year goal that in 3 years from now, you're going to be at another position. Now the reason I give 3 years is because for most people to learn something new, they can't do it full time. We have full-time occupations and families. To go to night school, or even on the weekends, is more reasonable. Most of these changes require some teaching, specialized training. You don't want to feel overwhelmed, and you also don't want to give up what you're currently doing because it can create economic stress and family problems. So give yourself 3 years. Give yourself monthly goals to reassess. Do you feel that what you're doing is right for you? Now initially you're going to feel very uncomfortable because learning something new to look forward to what we're going to have to give up someday doesn't mean we're giving up the knowledge and the special skills of what we've learned. I mean, if you're a lawyer, you know how to mediate, you know how to look at both issues within a problem. So no matter what other job you would do, you'd have those skills of the best of what you learned of being a lawyer to take with you. Then find yourself a support system. It's crucial. Now, dynamic assertives don't need support systems. Dynamic aggressives don't need support systems. But all the other energies do. And what I mean by a support system is find someone who you can communicate with as to the frustrations, fears, the joys of what you're learning and how you feel you're progressing. Because at a crucial time, you will have learned enough to where you can make that change. But that doesn't mean that you're going to automatically make it. But if you had someone supporting you all along and you've created a whole design for what you want to do, which is the next part, then you're more likely to make it. Now the next part is create a design. Create a multi-stage entry into what you're going to do. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you're frustrated being an administrative assistant and you want to be an editor. Well, you have to understand what editors do. There are different types of editors. So first, let's say you want to be an acquisition editor. To be an acquisition editor, you have to know what a trend is before it happens, because the success or failure of your publishing company is going to rely upon you making the right story choices. So try seeing if you would have selected articles out of magazines and books, if you had had that choice. Do a lot of reading. There's some things you'll say, well, that's not going to work. Or that would work. Then see over a period of 6 months, did it work? Did it not work? It's like movies. When I see a movie, I instantly say this should never have been made. Now, I just saw the movie Volcano, and I said, this movie should never have been made. Never made. They'll never make their money back. And I'll bet they won't make it back, even with all the money they're putting in to promote it. But when I saw another movie, like The English Patient, I said, this movie is going to succeed. And there are reasons why movies succeed or fail, because of what they do. If I see a movie that is supposed to be a tension, thriller, and if I don't feel completely vulnerable and helpless, then I'm not going to be moved by the movie. But that's one of the things you would do. Now, if you can't judge right, then clearly your intuition and your judgment is not going to help you, in which case you better look at another type of editing. Now, what I want to do now in the time we have remaining, I want you to give me what problem you have, and I'll see if I can't give you some direction how to solve it. Let's start in this area. Any of you have questions about your own career or a different career? Anyone in here? Yes.
I was an automation engineer for 7.5 years. Said, well, I'm just going to try something different. Started my own business and got involved in selling jackets and all. Hated it. Haven't been employed for about, I guess about 5 months now. Going back to my old job again as automation engineer that I hate for the last 7.5 years.
Because you didn't have a partner. A lot of careers, especially adaptive energies, should not be doing things on their own. It is better to find someone that you can share a common dream with and work together, especially if they're going to do the marketing, because engineers shouldn't be marketing. It makes them feel uncomfortable. They're not going to convince people very well, where someone who has a natural proclivity could take your product that's unique and original. So find an adaptive aggressive. They're the people that you should have.
I don't think use a product. I think I'm actually more of a dynamic supportive. I think I'd rather get into the health field.
All right, if you want to get into the health field, then you should also work with an adaptive aggressive, because you could be in the health field and have no business.
Right.
All right? You have to create a niche for yourself. There's more people in the health field now than what there are patients to be seen. Therefore, you have to come up with something that's unique and different. Adaptive aggressives are very good at coming up with marketing ideas. They're very good. They're the ones who work in advertising agencies and come up with the slogans. It's not the creative assertive that does that. It's the adaptive aggressives. They're so charming at motivating people that they're motivational concepts. And that would be true for many of you in your careers. You've got to match yourself with someone. You've got to have cooperative support with someone. All right, other questions? Yes?
Let's see. My job is inventory control, and it recently changed. They had a big software changeover, and all the work that I did went out to the plants and warehouses, and now I'm doing problem solving more, and I really don't like it at all. I mean, I'm trying to give it a chance.
What energy do you think you are?
Dynamic supportive.
If you're dynamic supportive, they don't like dealing with individual problems. They're not technically inclined. They don't like details. I mean, details are the last thing in the world that a dynamic supportive is going to be focusing their attention on. So what you should do is try to find a niche where you don't have to do the details, and you don't have to be the primary problem solver. You have to be the consultant. So I would market yourself as a consultant. And if you market yourself as a consultant, then you're able to use your skills in motivating people within a framework where they can help the technical part of the problem. Yes? You got to stand up and speak up so we can hear you loud.
I've worked in the health field for many years, and I'm unemployed. I was laid off, and I'm trying to find something else to do. I'm rethinking my entire career.
What would you like to do?
I'm interested in photography. That's a hobby of mine, but it's difficult to get into the arts and to make a living in that field.
It's easy to get into the arts. Look at how many people have artwork that isn't worth anything, and it's all subjective, right? I mean, I was over at the Metropolitan Museum of Art today looking at some Monets, and I could go down to Soho and find people on the street who could paint as well. Art is purely subjective. If I brought someone in here named Picasso and you didn't know what they were and I showed you some of his work, you'd think, what is it? But if I said this is $1 million painting, ooh, ah. Well, what is it? All it is some structure with design that we've accepted as being the epitome of something. But it doesn't mean it is. It's purely subjective. So what you have to realize is that no matter what has gone before you, all you do to succeed with art primarily is you create success. 90% of all success in art is someone creating it. The image, not the substance. There's very little substance in art. I mean, look at the guy who had the chimpanzees drink paint, defecate on a canvas, and sold them for $400,000. All right? I mean, what passes as art sometimes is absurd. You'll find dynamic aggressives being with young people, and we don't think that's unusual in our society. But adaptive supportives with someone young, we consider that unusual. Creative assertives with someone young and they're old, that's not considered unusual. That's the allowance we give. So the key here is find someone who can help you in what you are doing as far as creating an image of yourself. And let's face it, how many times have you gone to the movies thinking, oh, the most handsome man in the world, most beautiful woman in the world, and you think, sis, by whose standards? I mean, who makes up this stuff? I've met a million people better looking than most of the actors or actresses they call, outstanding male, female of the year. You go to movies where the people have no charisma. We've got a whole group of people in the arts now who have no charisma at all. They're purely manufactured by agents, by personal managers, by studios. They're not Clark Gable, they're not Cary Grant. They can't move you. So you watch them. So they surround them with all kinds of special effects, hoping that you won't notice that the person has no charisma. And we spend millions of dollars on these people. And they begin to believe that they're charismatic. They're not. In art, find some way to market yourself. It's not what you've created that's essential. It's how you promote it. Because in this world that we live in today, who you know will determine more how far you go than what you've done. And if you doubt me, 90% of all the deals in America are always made by insiders one to another, never from the outside. That's as true. Huh?
How do you get on the inside?
You get on the inside by making them feel that without you, they're going to lose. And there's some people who can do that. There are people that if they sit and talk with you for an hour, you'd absolutely feel that they have got the best thing that's ever been created. Look, there was a guy back in the 1970s who was unemployed. He used to eat in my restaurant. He used to bring his paintings around, offer me the paintings for a meal. My friend had his entire restaurant down on 6th Street and 1st Avenue covered with this guy's paintings. He was poor. He couldn't afford brown rice. So I fed him, right? He became well known. Do you know what his name was? Yes.
Now, there is a person who was very talented, and he
He had a persona that was talented. He succeeded because of Andy Warhol making him a somebody. Without Andy Warhol, he would have never gotten ahead.
Well, that's because he didn't have the, he was too busy making all that stuff to
There are a million artists every day. If you went down to Soho, you'd find a million canvases that all look beautiful, that all are very technically or creatively unique. But unless they have some way of going from that canvas to the public acceptance, and that's where agents, business people, that's where you've got to get someone who can get to a dynamic aggressive, because a dynamic aggressive can say, I want it, it's done. But we spend our time talking with people that can't help us. All right? That's the problem. You end up spending 90% of your time with the wrong people. You get on the phones talking with your mothers, your fathers, your aunts, your uncles, your male friends, female friends. That's not going to get you ahead. Networking the life energies will. It makes things happen. I hire everybody today based upon their life energy and their standards. If all standards are equal and everybody can do the same identical work, I then select them based upon what I know is important. For instance, if I need some artwork, the man who did all this, I hired him from Time Warner, Jay Greger, very gifted person. He was frustrated at Time Warner. He didn't like working in that structure. It was too political. You were just like on a machine. Now he's self-employed. But I hired him, and because I've hired him, it's given him enough of an income that he can perpetuate it. Now he's using the fact that he's working for Gary Knoll to sell something to someone else. All right? You got to know how to network and how to piggyback. Now, if he had an adaptive aggressive working with him, taking his book out, he'd get an advertising agency somewhere that's going to say, this is good work, because he's now got something that's been published, printed, it's marketed. But it takes a lot of determination to do that. Yes?
I'm a driver. I don't like working for anybody. I prefer working for myself. And the only reason I do it is because I have a lot of freedom. I have time to read what I want to read to get me to where I want to go. And what I want to do is get into stocks so I can make money, and I want to build an executive boys club for young kids.
You want to get into stocks?
Yes.
Are you adaptive aggressive?
No, I don't consider myself adaptive.
What do you think you are?
Dynamic assertive.
Dynamic assertives shouldn't be in the stock market.
But I want to do that too.
Let me explain if you're a dynamic assertive. Are you out there doing something for social change?
No.
Are you living a selfless life to help other people?
No.
Then you're not a dynamic assertive. That's the hallmark of dynamic assertives. They're always living more in the consciousness of the society they're a part of than for themselves. That's what draws the line. Now, what you should do if you want to make more money and get into something else to help, that requires a lot of different people. You're going to have 3 other energies to help you with that. And what you have to do is start networking with people and intuitively try to see what they can do and where they're at on the upside spiritually or the downside. Work with them. And also, it's going to take you at least 2 years to understand the stock market. And it's a dangerous game for people who are not really at the cutting edge of excitement and stress. Because you start getting in there and you hesitate, you can get everything wiped out, not only for yourself, but other people. And also, they tend to only take people who are very aggressive.
I don't want to work. I want to do it for myself, invest my own money, my own.
Oh, you want to invest your own?
Right. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to work for them. I want all the decisions to be based on me.
Then you've got to take a lot of time and effort. There are other ways of making money than the stock market. Stock market is not the best way of making money and getting ahead. You have too many other people who are economic parasites. They make money even when you lose money. And you don't want people making money off you losing money. I wouldn't chance that. I mean, very few people are smart enough to know how to work the market. Only dynamic aggressives and adaptive aggressives is the only 2 I would ever suggest stay in the market. Yes?
Yes, I'm a probation officer.
Speak up, please.
And I've been doing it for almost 12 years. And I just feel so stuck. I want to make a change, you know.
But what do you want to do?
I'm not sure. I'm not clear.
Okay, then what you should do if you don't know what you want to do is don't do anything.
No, I can't. It's
No,
painful.
I didn't finish. Listen. Don't do anything until you've had a chance to see what excites you. And only what excites you should you be doing. And that means you've got to give yourself quality time to experiment with different parts of life. You've got to go around and do a lot of these different things or be around things like this to see if any of it excites you.
Okay, well, I have found that interior design excites me, and I sent off for a correspondence course.
All
I
right.
started that, but I don't know if I have the right life energy for it. How do you get clear on what your life energy is?
You'll understand your life energy when what you want to do feels absolutely balanced, where you don't feel the stress, where it feels natural. That comes from the heart, not from the brain. It's not something you calculate. It comes from that feeling that what I'm doing is what I should be doing, where there's no conflict. Now, the conditioned mind wants to help people. The conditioned mind wants to see things change for the better. You've got all those gifts and skills now that you could use in any other thing you chose to use. So you haven't lost anything by making a change, but don't change until you know that it's right. And that takes time and patience. There's no other way to do it. It might take you 2 or 3 years of just looking and seeking and trying and experimenting and then saying, that flavor's what I like. That's it. That's me. And it'll be a catharsis. It'll suddenly be a revelation when it happens. When you know what you should be doing, it'll be a revelation. You won't have to have worked on it. You won't have to sell yourself into it. And if you got to sell yourself into something, it's not the right thing to be doing. Because then you're going to sell yourself out of it the first time you hit problems or uncertainties or you get insecure. Last question, yes?
Yeah. I've been in cosmetics for 17 years, and I get bounced all over the place. So I think I'm adaptive aggressive. I found a business in my mind. I made up a name. I went to the bank. I sold them the idea. They loved my idea. They were all excited about it. And now I think that if I understand you correctly, an adaptive aggressive shouldn't be in their own business. And I just got a rent on the space today.
Adaptive aggressives can be in their own business if they have support.
Right.
But mind you, on the upside of being adaptive aggressive, you have to have patience, mastery, and discipline. And you have to cut off all the other things that before would distract your time and attention. And that requires a great deal of introspection. Oh, yeah. You have to keep an absolute sense of focus. Otherwise, in 3 months or 4 months, if you do have a problem or any crisis, That part of you that's insecure and feel you made the wrong decisions is going to buckle and run and be angry with yourself, and then you're not going to want to do anything in the future. You're not going to want to take any chance on your own. That's why I say before you commit yourself completely to something, make sure that you have all the support around you so that when you do hit the crisis, and there's going to be crisis in everything. I mean, nothing works the way we expected or wanted to. And if we haven't prepared ourselves for those problems, when we hit the problems, we're finished. And then the rest of our life, we think about we could have done, might have done, should have done, but we didn't because we didn't want to make a mistake again and have low self-esteem where other people say, see, you should have stuck with what you know best. And that's why I say give yourself a chance to prepare. It's in the preparation and the support. And then on a small scale, try it. You try something on it. I had someone adaptive aggressive, wanted to open up their own business. And I knew this person. I said, before you open up your own business, go out and rent a booth on the street, you know, the fairs, and see how you like it. Interfacing with people one-on-one, different people, where you also have to be responsible for standing behind what you sell. Well, the person did it for about 3 months, and they liked it. They liked that energy. Then they opened up their own business. And now they're very successful at what they're doing because it was right for them, but they experimented. So give yourself a chance to experiment. That's all the time we have. I want to thank you all very much for being here. Let me just mention also